Pickaxe.
Hello, and welcome to the Chance Encounters podcast. We've been running board game cafes around the UK for about 6 years now. From family dues to hen dues, from first dates to breakups, we've seen it all. And now we're looking for a fresh challenge. So each week, we'll invite a guest on who will put our board game knowledge to the test. They'll come armed with an abstract and absurd scenario, and it's up to us to figure out what that situation calls for and recommend a game that actually makes them laugh out loud. Whichever game recommendation our guest loves the most will score a point, and at the end of the series, whoever has the most points will be crowned the Titan of board games. My name is Richard Scarsbrook. I'm one of the founders of Chance Encounters. I've been with them since the beginning, and this year we went out on a limb, and I went to Disneyland. It was pretty great. We didn't have any children. We just thought we were going to go to Disneyland, and we had a great time. Don't let children hold you back. Go to Disneyland.
I thought you were going to say, don't let children go to Disneyland.
They're ruining it for all us grown-ups. Get out of the way.
It would at least halve the queue. So I'm kind of all for it, if that would be, So I am joined with my you probably recognise him, Ben.
I'm Ben. I work with the Yogscast. I love board games. I'm a massive nerd. And if I could, I would send my child to Disneyland on his own. So that I didn't have to do it.
Wow, okay.
A chaperone situation.
Wow. Not just with another suitable guardian, but just on their own.
Just knock yourself out, kid. Enjoy it. Tell me all about it when you get home.
Eat as much sweets as you want. Wow.
And our guest guru for the week is Russ.
Hello, I'm Russell. I work at Chance Encounters with Rich, and look after the games and stuff. But I went to Disneyland Paris and was very underwhelmed with how, considering it's such a big company Disney is, how poorly kept it is. I don't know if anyone else went to Disneyland Paris in the last few years, but it's a bit untidy.
Well, if it's anything like Euro,
evidently this guy.
If it's anything like Euro Itchy and Scratchy Land from The Simpsons, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still some good rides there, which not all of them are open at any time, which sucks. But yeah, it was just like there was paint peeling on places. I was like, you're Disney, you can afford to hire a painter and cover up all those scratch marks and stuff. It's
I will say that Small World was actually shut at the time we went. Which is if you know anything of Disneyland, Small World is the ride you probably know. At least
it's the song. Yeah. Oh, a creepy song. I think that's, I
would say I've divided everybody here, but we'll find out. So our guest this week is John.
Hey, I'm John Purkis. I have a YouTube channel called Actualol. It's about board games. And I review board games, and I've been doing it for 7 years. And I play board games all the time and talk about them, and it's my life.
What a coincidence. Because that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I have been to Disneyland Paris, but it was so long ago that I literally can't think of a single anecdote to bring to this conversation, so I kept quiet.
Fair enough. Well, it's just one of those things where I'm you know what? We were in Paris, and there's all the culture and the food, and you can drink it in. And then I was like, we could go to Disneyland. And my wife was like, don't do this to me. Are you kidding me right now? She's a big fan of Disney. So that was the reason I ended up. We didn't go to Paris with the expectation.
Oh, it's like a spontaneous trip.
Sort of, yeah.
Do you know what was cool? When I will say this, though, about Paris, is that when I did go there with the express intent to visit Disneyland, it was free to get the train because the French train drivers were just on strike. So instead of
who was driving the train?
I don't know, maybe they got some scabs in, but they were just making it free. They were doing some form of protest, so you could just go on the train for free. I thought that was brilliant and very kind of them to
I
do
would
that
be very based on the fact that you didn't know who was driving the train and they'd made it free. I think they were just we don't have any liability here, guys.
Yeah, it didn't stop at any stops, and we did crash when we got to Disneyland. But
then you went to this creepy rundown amusement park that they told you was Disneyland. It sounds like you got scammed.
They did have to do a lot of hard labour there.
Yeah. The old breaking rocks ride sucks.
That's probably why it was unkempt and not in so good condition. Oh.
But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I've been told that you've come armed with a scenario.
Oh yeah. I came up with like 3, and then I whittled it down to 2, and now I got 1.
Yeah.
I hope it's the best one.
We'll never
Well, we'll
know.
never know. I guess.
And here's what you could have scenarioed. Yeah.
So my scenario is you are a scout leader and you've taken a bunch of kids into a forest to camp out for the night, but there's a bear on the loose. And so we're not in England, I assume.
Well, Bristol Zoo did just close, to be
Right.
fair.
True.
Maybe
I hear their security was lacking.
they just let him out.
Yeah.
And
They went on strike and just let the animals out.
So the bear's on loose. It could kill you and the children, so you need to have your wits about you. So you need a game that you can play around the campfire that's going to keep everyone awake. If anyone falls asleep, they're at risk of being mauled by a bear. So
You're
Wow.
suggesting that if someone falls asleep, no one's going to be like, hey, there's a bear coming. It's like, no. The screaming won't wake them. Nothing will wake them. They're dead to us. They're
so
bait.
I'm not a scout leader myself, so I don't really know how it works. This is just how it works in my head, yeah.
Yeah, I assume the rules are you just run when you see the bear.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah, and if you're asleep, it takes you a bit longer. You're sort of dawdling, you know. If you've just woken up, your running speed is not
that's
full.
it. You don't have to outrun the bear.
Yeah.
You just have to outrun the slowest member of your group
Then
to
I
survive the
feel
bear
like
attack.
this scenario should be put one person to sleep and then move on to the good game.
Oh, that's immoral.
Sorry.
That's where I draw
I'm
the line.
just saying what everybody's thinking. If I'm going to have to survive, I'll be like, so spreadsheets, guys. There's actually some really great things here.
Yes, rulebook page 54 says. Just keep going all night long.
Yeah, so that's the scenario.
Okay.
Hey, life or death.
How many people are in this troop?
Let's say 10. Oh no, whoa, that's too many for a game. Let's say 6.
6. Very
Nice, very safe.
Wow. So this is the scout leader plus 5.
Sure, yeah.
Are we talking? So scout. I don't know how old scout. Are we age rating for the actual children?
I would say,
teenagers,
they're the older crowd because, let's say they're like 14. They're just on the cusp. They were taken, to an adventure where there could be bears on the loose. So they're the most experienced ones.
Okay, and
Yeah.
they've been flown out to unknown country with bears.
yes.
Could be Siberia. It could be the US. We're not 100% sure.
Yes, exactly. And they are tired from a long day's walking.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no!
And then they have to do the staying up
Oh.
at the camp.
Of course.
Yeah, got to build the campfire.
But if there's no one going to be sleeping, then I guess you don't need to do the tent.
True.
Or you make a single tent with all the food in, so you can go to sleep again.
But then they don't need to play a game to keep them awake.
They have no food. Gotcha. Right.
So, we talking about like the bear's motivations here? Why is he
Hungry.
after? Yeah. So I'm just thinking
Specifically-
maybe because they're scouts, and there's in scouts there's different levels of it, and there's one called the Cubs. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they just think we've stolen the Cubs and they're trying to get them back.
They keep mentioning the word cub, and the bears are hearing that and getting very confused.
Hold on. One of my cubs just recently left. Have they got one of my cubs? What's
Andrew,
going on
you're
there?
looking pretty hairy over there.
Yeah. Okay. So they're all sat around this fire. I assume that no one's thought to bring a table. We've got very little.
Oh
in
yeah,
terms
where are we
of-
playing on? Like, because you can get camp tables, but
I don't want to rule out. I don't want to make it so hard that there isn't some flat area.
I mean,
there's the ground.
there is the
I
ground. To be fair.
hear that scouts are always prepared. However,
Yes, that's so true.
Oh, that just
However-
opens the doors to anything.
Yeah,
doesn't
bear
it?
at heaven.
they've brought the bare necessities with them. So we've got some things that maybe they could fashion into at least a table, but maybe that's not the idea. Are we all playing around the campfire? Is that the safe spot?
I think you can play off to the side.
Okay.
For me, it's about what's going to keep them the most awake.
Keep them awake. So anything that's essentially like Red Bull for them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Cardboard Red Bull.
Yeah.
Cardboard.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, I've got loads of those.
And I think this was inspired. I just had a game night with a bunch of new people, not scouts.
Yeah.
And we started with just one great opener, went really well, and then I shifted into another game which I thought would go well, and just suddenly the table just got a lot quieter and really dimmed, and then I sort of moved on as quickly as I could, went to another game, and it really picked back up again, and I very much felt like that game was starting to send people to sleep, and I really regret it. So,
What game was it?
well, I think it's
name
good,
was
but it was
shaky.
Las Vegas. It's a dice game.
Oh, I think that's a great game.
Yeah, it's a great game,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, this group of
Didn't gel.
part
They
of
just
the
didn't
fun
feel
of
it.
part of the fun of that game is kind of saying no, you need to choose that casino because it screws that person. out.
yeah. It's a lot of screwage.
Yeah.
But you know,
How much responsibility do you feel as obviously a known board game personality to be the kind of host of a board game night? Do
Too
you ever go
much.
just like, you know what, can I just be the one being like pitched games and taught games for a change?
I mean, that almost never happens. No, I take it on, and it starts off like excitedly, willingly, like I'll invite the people over, and then I really like put the pressure on myself, and I'm like rearranging what games we're going to play, and then sort of on the night, it's like, oh, I'm getting a sense that it's going. You know, you're trying to be like a DJ or something. Like the crowd is going in this direction.
Yeah.
Quick, I'll change the schedule.
It's why I can never pick the music at a party, because I'm just way too self-conscious, and if like I look around and people aren't into it, I'm like, oh god, next track. Next track.
I actually did go to a club once where they just cut the track halfway through and just went because everyone left the dance floor. I was like, even a bad DJ should know you never do that, right?
Oh wow, just faded in, right?
He just cut it, and
no.
then
Oh, wow.
played the next track. Well, that was,
Oh my god, that's
people
a
come
panic
back?
move, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, did they return to the dance floor?
People did, yeah, because the music choice
you
was
put the right
terrible.
song.
So yeah, it was a good move, but there's better ways of doing it. But he was generally, I don't rate this DJ anyway. Like, it was terrible for the whole night. But that was just like a standout bad move by them.
So I actually cut Las Vegas short by half, but because they'd never played it before, they had no idea. They assumed that was the length of the game.
Oh, the end of the game.
A winner!
Oh, you've got 10 points. Well done.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's kind of interesting, though. You have to essentially curate the game collection and you do it on the fly. That seems like a lot more responsibility than your average game host.
I mean, that's how I'm doing it when these were all fairly new to games. You know, they played one or two things and I was trying to go off of what they played to base it on that. But usually I'm playing with people that love games and they played a million. And to be honest, I'm bringing them out bad games that I have to try for review and they have a mediocre time and they still come back. So I'm not encouraged to change that format at all.
You're like, not even to go, how bad a game can I get them to play before they just refuse to come back?
I start to feel really terrible if they've come multiple nights in a row but what you get is like they'll be like, oh, I'm not free because if I wanted to play that game again, you know, there's a bit of that going on.
I feel like that's a really hard one when someone asks you to do something. You're like, who's going?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's the equivalent, the board game equivalent. And what are you playing again?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm really sorry, but I'm busy that night with things.
Not playing that game.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, reorganizing my box of Twilight Imperium.
God, I do.
Valid.
I do have that now with Gloomhaven. I've got a group of friends I played Gloomhaven with, and I've dropped out. And I really want to hang out with those friends again, but I don't want to play any more Gloomhaven.
Oh, how many games did you make it in? 1.
12, 15, something
Okay,
like
yeah.
that. We got pretty far. I felt like, God, we must be getting somewhere now. We've unlocked like all the characters.
In 12 to 15 scenarios.
The power.
Which one are you
I
playing?
mean, I
Towards
did
the
about
Line?
12 to 15. I think they did
Oh,
a
okay.
bunch without me.
They must have, because I've played about that and we've unlocked 2 characters.
Oh my God.
We're really behind. Yeah.
Oh, so they can carry on without you. And are they carrying on?
Yeah,
without
yeah,
you?
they
Okay.
are.
Well, that's at least something.
Oh God, yeah. I would have felt way worse and would have stuck it out longer if it was me dropping out would have ruined it for everyone else. Like,
Yeah, no, I have like a couple of legacy games that are just sat on the shelf and my friends tease me about, but I've always got to be looking at the new thing, and these are like pre-pandemic things, and just trying to go back to it just feels like really hard work. Yeah, I can't. Legacy games they terrify me.
I love the idea of them, but there's so many
Yeah.
new games I want to try, you know, and I only have so many times to play.
I've always thought the positive of a legacy game is that it is going to encourage you to play the same game, inverted commas, over and over again, which usually people who are really into board games don't tend to do, because they do follow the hotness. And so I like that aspect about it, because I played through Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and Season 2, and I did have a good time playing them. And I probably wouldn't have played Pandemic nearly as much if it hadn't been for the legacy format. So I like that about legacy games.
Somewhat breaking news. I'm contrarian in my love of Terraforming Mars. I agree the artwork is sometimes, fair enough.
You're allowed to like
that.
Terraforming Mars.
Thank you. This is my safe space. This is where we can say it. But recently, I've just seen that Arc Nova has topped it. So I think Terraforming Mars has now gone down to 6 on BGG's rating, and Arc Nova is like 4. And I was like, I still haven't played Arc Nova, but now I'm like, I have to find out whether my my BFF is willing, like, reasonably. Does it deserve to go down one?
But it's gone from like one space down out of probably like 100,000 games. It's like it's not a knock on its quality, right?
Yeah.
It's
none of my
very
favorite games are like in the top
true.
50. It feels like. So
It is fair. Like the amount of games that we end up either recommending or people playing, or frankly the wider audience can enjoy, don't tend to be in that top. That one, and that, I think we get that.
I feel like that's part of the point of this show, though. If we were just every week going, oh yeah, these 3 games that are at the top of Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
Is that interesting?
It's true.
There's There's a YouTube channel that does a top 10 risers and top I used to think it was a top 10 board games countdown, and I was like, surely that rarely changes.
Yeah.
Like, do one a month. Yep, same
Still
as last
Gloomhaven.
week. See you next time. So I guess back to the scenario at hand.
These scouts don't care about the hotness,
No.
unless it's the heat of the flame. They only care about what they can be playing to play away.
Staying alive.
Staying alive.
So I'm guessing the waking, the keeping them awake factor. I don't have much experience because my nieces and nephews are all younger than we're saying roughly
14?
14 years old. So they're much younger than that. So they have a much more, hyperactive, like less of attention span. But I'm assuming teenagers will have more of an
I
attention
think
span.
they would probably play a lot of the games we would play, but there's just the modern, I want to look at my phone, I want to be doing other things. I don't know, I feel like a teenager is gonna get into a game, but it's just got to keep them intrigued.
Are they trying to get a specific badge here? Is it the don't get eaten whilst playing a board game badge?
Yeah. I think they'll get a badge. They'll probably get like a silver cross, or so one of them will kill the bear.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. Is just like sharpening spears whilst the game is ongoing. Right? Wow. I would not put my child towards this. This sounds like a terrible idea. It's safety hazards all over.
They're going outside. They're playing board games. They're not dying. These are all skills I want my son to learn.
To be fair, if there was a not dying badge, like when do you ever get it? Like because when do you get it? Immediately?
I'm gonna have to take that back from you.
Yeah.
Everyone gets given it at the start.
Is it like you get like a 5-year not dead badge, and a 10-year not dead
good,
badge?
yeah.
But what obviously we're gonna have to factor that you are going to be playing this game as well. So we have to kind of know what games you like.
Wait, if you suddenly cast him now as the scout leader, is that...
Sure, I'll be the scout leader. I would
so,
never do it in real life.
Yeah, otherwise, why is he leading?
Yeah.
Like a...
You're just the weird uncle who's also there.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my bear farm.
Yeah, someone dropped out and they offered me £1 million to do it, and I was like, okay.
But only if none of the kids die.
I only have to survive one night.
Yeah.
So what games do you like, and alternatively, what games do you dislike?
Oof. What games do I like? I like, how to describe it simply, because I feel like everyone judges. I have viewers that will like judge my taste, and they'll have watched all my videos, so they still don't fully understand. I like games that are quite interactive. I like stuff that is simple to learn, but often has some depth to it. So I'm not huge on big rule books. I like something that carries a theme, but in a sort of lean way. So, rather than reading lots of flavor text, it sort of makes you feel. So I think the feeling of a game is really important to me. I like big group games. I like anything that's very social. I like games that are played above the table. So like bluffing, negotiation, party games, bidding games. And yeah, I think that sort of covers it.
Yeah.
Is there an instant turn-offs?
Heavy Euro games.
Yeah.
And just that really. I'll play long games, but they need to be sort of cutthroat like Game of Thrones, or do something like Battlestar Galactica, or I don't play them very often, but I like those that you sort of tell the narrative through the game. Merchants and Marauders is another one, or Western Legends I'm a big fan of, but I play them more occasionally.
Is there a bet that how many of these games do you think you'll have already played by the time we recommend a game?
Oh yeah, I feel like there's very slim chance we'll recommend a game that you haven't at least tried.
I would really love to have played all the games that you recommend. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
I have to admit, until you just said it, I was thinking about recommending Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, yeah.
But now I'm going to try and dig a little deeper.
I feel like with those games you have to carry a lot of like tension and like suspicion with you the whole time, and I feel like after a game of that we'd be wiped out, from like having to carry all that, because I have played games of like I've played that exact game and afterwards I'd be like, man, I'm exhausted, because that was a real toll on my mental state.
Fortunately, it takes 12 hours and you're through the night, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, so do we just have to survive till the morning?
Yeah,
or...
I think so.
Okay,
yeah,
fine. Okay.
And I appreciate Battlestar Galactica is tiring, but just start again. That's it. We're in a heightened situation here. The adrenaline will get you through.
Yeah,
You're not
true.
at home.
I can imagine though, as a 14-year-old child, I would probably be like, "What, Cylon?"
Yeah.
I wonder who the Cylon is. It's definitely Russ. Be like, well, that's the game decided.
There is obviously that thing about games with hidden roles, especially where it's bad people trying to sabotage the game, where those roles tend to be the most fun to play. I don't know if I've played both as the Cylon and the humans in that game, and it's definitely more fun being a Cylon.
Yeah.
Because it's always so relentless trying to...
I think as long as you played the game before, I think playing the game for the first time as the Cylon is kind of overwhelming.
I don't know, just kind of fun. Like you just get told that you're basically, you have extra information. You have the key information in that game, and knowing that, I don't know, it's just exciting. I'm like, I don't care. Even if you're bad at it, it's fine, because the game is so hard. For the humans to win anyway.
As long as you keep quiet and don't give it a.
I once played the longest con in Battlestar Galactica. I got put in the jail like half an hour into the game, and I was a Cylon right from the start. And I stayed in there for the next 2.5 hours. Oh my God. Until the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, when everything was going wrong, the ship was falling apart, the other Cylon had been like killed, and everyone was like, oh my God, we just can't, like, we need to get him out of the brig. He would have killed himself and gone to Cylon heaven hours ago if he was, we've got to let him out because we need the extra cards to get through it. And so they let me out. After like sitting there for 2 hours going, oh my God, I'm not a Cylon. Please, someone let me out. I would have killed myself by now if I was. And then they gave me the take an extra action card. And then I got 3 goes in a row because they gave me 2 goes and then it was my go next. And I was like, oh, 3 actions. Brilliant. Yeah, I'm not going to fix the ship. I'm going to set off a bomb. I'm going to control the fleet. And just annihilated everyone in 2 minutes flat after they let me out. And it was one of the most satisfying gaming experiences of my life.
For you,
the dream.
And,
that's
but the
dream.
worst for the other people.
Well, that's it. Everyone else in that game has vowed to never, ever let me out of the brig again. And just at the start of the game, just airlock me if we're using that expansion. That's the only way to be sure. So I don't think I can ever play the game again with that group.
This is an interesting point, because the more you play these kind of games with people, you start getting this idea. Like, do these kids know each other? Have they played any type of game before? Have they been playing make-believe and then one of them secretly been a Cylon the whole time?
I feel like they must play games together. If you're a kid these days and you're a scout, that must overlap with being a board gamer, mustn't it? They must be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of it, but they must be playing.
Definitely a Venn diagram there somewhere.
Yeah,
I feel like the only Venn diagram I know about board gamers is sort of people in IT. I feel like there's a huge overlap of people in IT and board gamers, just from anecdotal experience, and not just making that up. Almost everyone that I've spoke to who works in IT plays board games. That's just common. I don't know if anyone else is aware of that, but that's what I feel. Yeah,
I've spotted it.
Yeah.
I'll back you up.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, this is actually a tricky one. I'm like,
I've started getting an idea of what I'd actually. Yeah, I'm pretty confident in mine.
I've got like games that I'm thinking of, but I'm also just not sure if they do too much of the, kind of keeping everyone engaged at all times, which I imagine is
That's a key thing, isn't it?
But also 6 players is a notoriously difficult amount of players to find at least strategic games for. That's like a real gap in the market there. From 6 players up, you tend to find a lot of social deduction games that work well from that player count and higher. But like strategy games at 6 is a really tricky group. And annoyingly, at Chance Encounters, when we have the bigger tables seat exactly 6 people, so when we get those people in, I'm like, okay, we're going to recommend them this game and that game, and then hope the other players just want to play a party game, because there is a real tricky like gap in the market. So if anyone's a designer out there and looking to hit like a sweet spot, 6-player strategy games that are fairly light.
But it's not even just that. It's about making sure that at 6 players there's no downtime for people, because you have to be playing it like in parallel, and if you're not constantly doing something, and at 6 players, you've gone from the 4 where it's socially acceptable to be like, you take a turn, and you take a turn, and you take a turn, and I get to play at least 25% of the time. Whereas with a 6 player, it's like it's got to be done at the same time, or you have to be interacting or socializing or whatever else.
Because otherwise, like you say, someone pulls out their phone because they know they've got half an hour before it's their turn, and then they're no longer planning ahead. And then when it comes to their turn, it takes longer, which means other people are going to pull out their phones, and then everything just slows down.
Spiral.
Yeah. Exactly.
And in this literal situation, it would be.
Yeah. There's games that actually do technically go up to 6 players that I just would never play. For example, one of my favorite games of all time is Keyflower, which is fantastic, very dry looking game, so not one I'm going to recommend in this situation, but it's fantastic. It goes from, I think, 2 or 3 to 6 players, but at 6 players, it takes so long before it's your turn again that I am just not interested in a game that I actually enjoy. So I would never recommend.
It's one of those games that can theoretically play at 6. Yeah. I think there's some games where the designer's just like, well, if we just add a few meeples in different colours, we can say this is a 6-player game, and it doesn't cost us that much more, so let's do it.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
But yeah, 6 players, interesting. I just, when you were talking about something, I just clicked an idea. So actually, thanks.
Thanks. All right. What my task is now to continually ask questions to make it even more and more difficult and try and screw Russ's recommendation up. That's where I'm going for. Are
there any kind of themes you prefer over others? Seem not too important.
Great question. If I'm the scout leader, yes. I don't really care for fantasy themes, or I'm not that fussed about sci-fi, but I can sort of live with it. I play Battlestar Galactica. Those are the ones I'm not so fond of. Anything else is sort of fair game. I tend to like stuff that has a real world theme, or something that you could imagine a film was based on. I don't know why that's sort of a weird descriptor, but Pandemic really works for me because I just feel like it just is a very cinematic theme. And I don't see enough games that are set in like hospitals or anything that you could have a TV show or a film about.
That's a good question though. Like, has there been a port from a board game to a TV show or film?
I don't know.
Can
feel like
we write a
Battleship.
script? Can we be the first?
Battleship, no.
Oh god, yeah,
Is that
that's
technically one?
Technically, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Hasbro had a
Sad
deal.
that it is.
Yeah.
I feel like Hasbro had a deal. They had a deal with like they licensed a bunch of their board games so people could make films based on them. And I can't remember any other ones.
Yeah,
other
there was
than
talk of
Battleship.
Monopoly for a while, but it just never happened. And then
Took them too long in negotiations and just never.
you've got Clue. That's a film based on Cluedo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And apparently they're making a TV series about it.
that
Okay.
could
Can
work.
you-
I could definitely see that working.
I
Actually,
watched
yeah.
Clue on video, and it has 4 alternate endings.
I've heard this.
Oh,
Was this
wow.
recently
And
on Twitter?
when they played it at the cinema, each cinema got a randomly different ending
wow.
of their film, and essentially, it could have been any of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person who did the murder is different in every ending, and it still all makes sense and matches up.
So exactly like the game then.
I sort of feel like that's really unsatisfying.
It is unsatisfying.
Because I want to
Yeah.
watch a mystery where at the end
There's
they
an
go,
answer.
"Oh, by the way, it's this,"
All the
and you
clues.
should have noticed the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But if it could be 4 different people, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate opposite of what you want from a whodunit. But it's a very silly film. It's more of a comedy
Yeah.
really than a real mystery.
I think that's probably why it can get away with it, because it's a comedy film. It doesn't really matter. But you have a writing background, am I?
Yeah, I used to write for TV, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like that for me would really irritate me if there wasn't like such a tightly scripted like script that
Right.
it would make sense. After the reveal, like you go, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't see those things, but now it makes total sense. But that would infuriate me if I
Yeah,
found
that-
out. Like, well, what was the point? Let's just show me the ending. then.
The last 20 minutes are all I apparently care about. Cool. Great. I mean, Jumanji being I think was a little reversed? Did they make a board game of the TV?
Yeah, I've never played the game.
I mean, why would you?
It's not. Come on,
Because-
it's
You could
never-
die.
It's never going to stand up to the game in the film, is it? Unless
Well,
it's
true.
augmented reality, I can see it kind of working actually.
Whoa.
Yeah, if you did augmented reality with the Jumanji board game and then kind of created environments.
That's
No,
just
no.
asking for it to be pulled in even further.
now we're just
Yeah.
getting one of those. That's just the modern version of those awful board games that came with videotapes that you'd have like the man on the screen talking to you.
Atmosphere.
Yeah.
So I never played Atmosphere, but there were a couple of other games, and I always was really excited to play those, but never actually got one and got a chance to play one. So I'm just going to pretend
They were
I'm
amazing.
going to pretend they were terrible. So I feel like I never missed out.
Right.
But we did actually. I think we did have one, but I think we were too young to grasp how the heck it worked, so we never actually properly played it. But the concept sounds really, really interesting.
It's novel. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been done with apps and smartphones and YouTube and stuff. It would be really easy.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't been done, which makes you think that someone tried it and it was so bad. that
Yeah,
they
it must just
stopped
be
making
terrible, right?
They definitely had like Trivial Pursuit kind of things where they had like a CD with it. But you're right, they don't seem to have made the jump to being like, why don't you just stream it? Like we've
Or just just video on a phone and but again, I can't remember any of the sort of setups for these games were they involving like pieces moving around a board?
I think a lot of them
or-
would just roll and move, draw
Yeah.
cards kind of situation.
but with a C-list actor that's been paid to just stand in front of a green
Yeah.
screen and
Oh no! I'm assuming that the kids don't have technology on them.
No, none of that.
Their mobiles were confiscated before they boarded the plane.
Correct. Maybe one of the smaller bears came round and stole their phones.
They were
Actually,
thieves.
now I think of it.
Gotcha. Time to get our own back. They stole our porridge.
That's classic bear behaviour. They isolate you first,
Yeah.
and then
classic bear behavior.
Excellent. So I have a recommendation that I'm keen for. It sounds like you've got
I've
one.
got one now. I've got one.
And Ben, how are you feeling?
I'm a bit stumped actually.
Did you want to ask any questions to make you even more stumped? No.
Yeah, I feel like every question I've asked has made it harder.
Yeah.
So I might stop. I'm
That's fair.
gonna need a minute.
All right, so we're now ready for some recommendations. Did you want to pick the honor of putting someone on the spot? Did you want to?
Sure, Russ.
All right.
Hit me.
So I'm just basing this on the fact that they are teenagers. They are able to play, some level of complexity, but not too complex. I think theme is also really important for this as well, because not just because that's what you enjoy, but I also think that as a teenagers, something that they may have seen or enjoyed before in some capacity might help them kind of enjoy the game more. And 6 players as well. I went with Villainous. So Villainous is a game, like a kind of light-ish strategy game.
It's like you're at Disneyland.
But it's a strategy game. But the real great thing about this game, and I love telling people about this game at the cafe and like outside, is that you play as the villains from classic Disney films. So you might be Ursula. And obviously the villain she's the villain of The Little Mermaid. And then you might be Maleficent, who's the villain of Snow White. And you're trying to achieve that villain's goal that it was in the film. So it's a very good thematic tie-in, because if you've seen those films, which a lot of people have, then you kind of understand already what your goal is. But the way the game works is you've got a deck of cards. You've got 3 or 4 locations on a board in front of you, and basically on your turn you move your character to a different location and do some sort of actions, which involves sometimes getting rid of cards, playing cards, moving cards, trying to beat the sort of the foes in this game, which brilliantly are the heroes and the good guys from the films that you're actually playing in. So it's really neat little twist there. And then the other thing which you can do in this game is to fate someone, which is to take cards from a deck from an opponent, so someone who's presumably in the lead or doing very well, and you get to draw 2 cards and play something which will kind of hinder them in some form. So it's a strategy game. It does go up to 6 players. I did play it recently, which is why you said about like games that take up to 6 players, and it does err slightly on the longer side. But it was still enjoyable because, and this is where the other factor that you were talking about, trying to keep everyone awake, there is a kind of a semi-cooperative element to this game, because while you are trying to achieve your goals and everyone is trying to achieve their own, sometimes you have to work together to keep an eye on what other people are doing. You have to do that throughout the whole game. Keep an eye on what other people are doing, because if someone is getting too close to their goal, you then gang up and try and hinder them. So everyone is usually trying to pay attention the whole time, not just on your turn, because you are trying to stop other players from sort of getting ahead.
It has like an auto leveling sort of situation.
Yeah, essentially. And it's not too bad, because when you do kind of play the fate cards on someone, it's really great. I played as Jafar in mine, and my goal was to try and find the magic lamp and then summon the genie, hypnotize him, get him under my control, and then bring him back to the palace. Because it's been a long time since I've actually seen Aladdin, but I seem to recall that as what Jafar's trying to do. But when you're trying to get your goal and then suddenly Aladdin pops out and is just getting in your way and like, I'm going to kill Aladdin, it just seems really evil. Seems really evil to do that. But it was a great game, very, very light and not too complicated, and it would reward repeat plays, because once you develop an understanding of how each villain's plays out, you can be more effective in playing as them and also preventing other players from winning as them as well. So yeah, Villainous also is gorgeous. And the other thing I thought of, which is it's not a really good strength for it, but if we're fighting off a bear, one of the pieces in Maleficent has like 2 horns. So in a pinch, you could use it as a weapon, but I wouldn't really use that. It's also beautifully produced as well. The artwork is all really good. Yeah. The production, the pieces, the figures that you use are really cool and stylistic, but they're not just the villains in miniature form. They are like stylistic representations of the villains in different like colors. It's just beautiful.
They also have 2 or so expansions.
I think they've got 3 or 4 standalone expansions, so you don't even have to buy in the original box, which plays at 6. You can buy in just as a 3-player one, and all of them can be mixed and matched. And they've got Syndrome from The Incredibles as a villain. They've got Lotso from Toy Story. They've got Willy from the Steamboat Willie film, which I can't even imagine what his goal is in that film. Like, I've never played with him, but it must be. It's really cool. And then they've got Marvel versions. They've got Star Wars versions. It's
lots of customization.
I've never played it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got me.
Okay. I'm.
So I have to leave now, I guess, which sucks, but never
Take
mind.
one of your board game cards.
I do like the sound of it, that thing of like attacking other people or keeping them down. That does feel very suited to a teenager. Yeah, just making sure everyone's on the same level. And I think that's one of the things that Gateway, sort of the games that we grew up with, were so good at, is being mean to each other, like Monopoly and Risk. And then I think people can come to modern board games and sort of miss that aspect of it. And I agree, I don't want to be playing Monopoly anymore, but I think it would be nice to have sort of the odd Gateway game that allows you to be a bit mean to each other and kind of and thrive off of that. And
there's definitely a bunch of games that I played where I'm like, wait a second, I just went 3 hours without interacting or really even paying attention to what you've just been doing.
Very few modern games have much interactivity. It's really like, common to not.
Hey, there's this one thing that you can do, and it's just like, how often have you ever done that? Like,
yeah, it's like there's games that have the bare minimum of interactivity, and they're usually roll and writes, because you roll the dice, and then the first player gets to pick a dice, and then the other players also get to pick dice, but maybe not the one that you picked, and that's their basic level of interactivity. But they can still be fun. They're just a different kind of game.
Yeah. Not for teenagers that are trying to stay awake.
Yeah.
Ben.
Right, so I'm going to recommend Galaxy Trucker. Which I imagine you played. Most people into board gaming have.
I have.
The reason I recommend it is because it's a simultaneous game. I'm not sure if the actual original game goes up to 6 players.
It has an expansion for it.
There we go. I was going to say, if not, you just need to add a few more pieces in. It doesn't break the game adding in more players, because essentially everyone plays simultaneously. You're not taking turns, you're not waiting around, you are grabbing pieces out of the box and you are building your spaceship. And then even when your spaceship goes on its adventure and has all of its trials and maybe breaks in half and explodes, that's all happening to everyone simultaneously as well. There's literally no downtime in this game. And it's a game that escalates quite nicely. It starts off small and it gets medium, then it gets large. Plus there's a million expansions all in a big box. And if you wanted to, you could, if you've got to last all night long, you could play the original game. Then you can be like, right, now we'll try the expansion. Play all the way through with the expansion. Then now we've got another expansion. So every game feels like it's adding more in without overwhelming with too many pieces. I've never seen anyone sitting around looking bored playing Galaxy Trucker.
I imagine it's weighty enough as well to do some serious damage.
Oh yeah, you pack it up, you swing it at that man. It's like a massive bit of 2x4 or something. You'll just take him out.
Yeah, I think the younger you are, the almost better you are at a game like that as well. The kind of real time, trying to think on your feet aspect. I played it not so long ago and just really struggled with it. I like real-time games, and like you say, they really keep everyone involved. There's no downtime. There's something about a real-time competitive game that stresses me out a lot more than cooperative. Usually you're working together, and so it's sort of fine if you drop the ball, but somehow if you're just fending for yourself. And then something I found with Galaxy Trucker, which would certainly benefit playing it all night, was that I had a friend that played it a lot before, and he really knew how to be good at it, kind of thing. And I was new to it. And so, yeah, it sort of definitely benefits multiple plays and kind of understanding, oh, you don't do that.
Yeah, definitely. There's certain patterns when you get used to it.
Yeah.
But that's what the end of the night's for.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So my game recommendation is erring more on the social side. It's going to be called Sounds Fishy, which is a new game, relatively speaking, from Big Potato. It is a game where it's somewhat of a trivia game. The idea is that there's a guesser. There's 3 roles. There's a guesser, there's a red herring, and there's also the true blue kipper. And the idea is that the guesser takes one of these trivia cards out, and it might be like, this is instantly where any form of trivia, like, how many wheels are there on Earth? That's probably a terrible one, but it's like
Russ. Like the president so and so died from what? People think that, it's just a weird trivia that Big Potato are really good at finding.
Yeah. So it'd be a question that has potential. It has a very silly answer, and therefore, as a red herring, you're tasked with trying to come up with an answer that is believable, so you are not picked as the false answer. And then you have the true blue kipper who has to read out the correct answer. So what will happen is the guesser reads it out, gives everyone 15 seconds. They know which one the answer is. So because you've got essentially it's a double-sided card, and then they've got the answer on their side. And then as you show it around, you give them 15 seconds, and then you're like, okay, all right, tell me what is your answer to this, and then they'll give you an answer, and then you'll keep on going around. And then it's up to the guesser to try and reveal as many kippers as they feel, and it's a bit of a push your luck as this situation. I'll be honest. The scoring, I had to check every single time I played it.
Same.
However, it does make sense. And so what you're doing is you're pushing your luck. You might be like, okay, I'm gonna reveal people, and then you might get to a point where you're like, there's two answers that could be true. I'm gonna stop. And you'll get points based on the number of red kippers you found. If you push your luck and you go bust because you've found the true blue kipper.
Oh my god, I've just thought of an easy way to describe it. The weakest link style of scoring. You can bank those points.
Exactly.
I never thought I'd reference the weakest link on this show.
And as the red kipper, you're basically you get points based on the number of other people. This is where it gets confusing. I think it's the other people that have been flipped over, but not you.
Yeah,
if you get flipped over, then
if you're the first one flipped, you don't get any points.
Exactly.
But if you're the last one to get flipped, then that's...
So if you get flipped at all, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But if the true blue kipper gets flipped, it's then the kipper's trying to not get flipped over. Obviously, this is definitely where
I wouldn't get stuck in the weeds on the scoring.
To be fair, we had a great time playing it just without even caring that much about the score, and I think that's happened with a few other games I've played where we just don't care, like just one. I don't care about the score. I just want to enjoy playing the actual game.
Big Potato Games, I absolutely love them. They're great. Admittedly, I would normally just ignore the scoring section in general and be like, we kind of know who won here. You play Scroll, and apparently there's a way of scoring Scroll. I honestly have no idea how you score it and how you would, but either way. So Sounds Fishy is a great game. We had a really load of fun, and I can imagine that these like scouts, these 14-year-olds are going to come up with like the zaniest, what a great word, zaniest
so cool
of things.
Rich.
Yeah, whoa, like answers to that stuff, and they're obviously going to want to take turns being the guessers, and it pretty much always involved. And you're like, oh, is he going to pick me? And there's a bit of tension involved. It's the whole shebang. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I've played it. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I agree. The scoring was a bit confusing, but I feel like it was somewhat necessary to make sure that everyone understood their tasks. You know,
the scoring makes
because you need
sense.
that dynamic. Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you how to do it.
It just didn't
evidently.
Just didn't
Just
stay
stick
in there.
in your head.
And
Yeah.
literally every time it came to scoring, unless it was the win, right? We would have to go like, how many points do you get? Honestly, I've never been so. I never felt so stupid.
It's a shame. Some games it creates like a really good dynamic where this person wants to bluff and these and it's like, but actually, if it won't stick game after game after game, it's never going to become like a sort of evergreen party game like a Just One or something where you don't need to think about it. But then I don't even score that game either. And no one ever seems to know.
Yeah.
I always think, when I first ever played it, I used to be like, oh, guys, so, okay, we need to take one of the cards and put it over here. And, like, they're all just like, yeah, John, whatever. And now I just don't do it. And nobody ever goes,
no.
So what's our score? Like,
Did we win?
Yeah.
Everyone's ever played, like, Just One and gone, I remember when we scored, like, 12 points. You've just gone, I had a good time playing Just One.
Yeah.
No idea what score I ever got on there or whether we even won. The one thing I will say about Big Potato Game, the one game that I think had a really good scoring mechanism was Colour Brain, because you only get points if other players got it wrong and you got it right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was clever. But other than that, I can't remember a scoring from any
I guess
of the
herd
games.
mentality to an extent.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, it does make sense, but it's not as satisfying as that Colour Brain one, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Fair
Colour
enough.
Brain one's nice, yeah.
Because if everyone knows the answer, the question is clearly too easy, so nobody gets rewarded from that.
Yeah.
I thought that's clever.
Yeah.
But I played that very recently and I had a good time. Did you say you had a good time? Is it?
Yeah, it sounds fishy. Yeah. I liked it an amount.
An amount. Wow, that was very committed.
I've played a lot of party games and a lot of Big Potato games, I wouldn't rank it in my like upper echelon of big potato games, but I did enjoy it. I've played quite a few games that are doing a very similar thing to that, and maybe it's because of the scoring system. I've never quite found one that sort of massively sort of sings and want to keep coming back to, but I do like that challenge of trying to lie. It's like Balderdash, trying to come up with the fake thing, you know. It's
very close to Balderdash, except it's more easy because you don't have to write up anything. It's just and usually
streamlined, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and what you're trying to do, what you're trying to come up with, is usually very short. Like I actually remembered one of the facts that I thought was cool is like in the past, when people used to ride trains, people used to think that it caused the movement on trains used to cause I can't remember, it was like psychosis or something. There was a really interesting answer that I'm actually forgetting now. Sorry everyone, kind of balled you on that.
I think there was another one was like in Athens, like in olden times, what did they use as toilet paper? And the answer was stone.
What?
Oh.
So the whole thing was very
It's in the name.
The answer was
as in, what did they use to wipe themselves
toilet paper.
instead of toilet paper?
and they used stone.
Not even like sand.
There's leaves everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but leaves is the incorrect answer. But maybe if you were the red kipper, then maybe that was the ideal one.
Yeah,
I think
true.
papyrus was one of the like.
Well, that was like expensive to make. Like, no,
Sure.
you're not going to trick me with that.
No,
I know my ancient history.
Oh, the one that I mentioned was Nikola Tesla was unmarried, but famously fell in love with what? And the answer was a pigeon, but one of the people proposed his mother-in-law, at which point they hadn't figured this, and I was like, don't you have to be married to have a mother-in-law? They're like, oh yeah, what?
Sorry, he married a pigeon.
He didn't marry a pigeon.
Fell in love.
They didn't have marriages between pigeons and people back then.
No.
Yeah,
It's the worst time.
Unenlightened time.
we've moved. So I'll just remind you, we're looking at the games that are going to keep 14-year-old scouts, and I definitely think they like lying.
Yes, they do.
So, do you
Hang
think
on, a minute ago, didn't you just say they'd be terrible at Battlestar Galactica because they're bad at lying?
absolutely love lying? Oh, wait, they might be bad at it, but they'll all be really bad at it.
I feel like I'm going to pass the hypocrite crown to you.
I'll accept that. Thank you very much. Have you got any other questions on this?
I don't think so. I think with how are you seeing Villainous? You've got player boards, have you? So
you've got like boards that are about this big. It's just where your piece goes and tells you what action you've got.
You're going to need like a big ground space.
I mean, I assumed that wasn't a restriction per se because I mean, you said the floor, which technically you can play.
I'll tell you what. Let's deconstruct the tent and just use the ground sheet of the tent to use as our sort of rug.
I think the cards are good enough quality. They'd stand a bit of dirt, and I don't think it matters.
Are you saying you haven't sleeved your cards?
Oh, I'm not. I am not a sleever. I am not a sleever.
I think
not either.
by suggesting that we play, and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter what bit of dirt in Villainous.
I'm just saying that when
Everybody's
it was
just suddenly been like,
whoa! When the scenario was pitched, I remember you saying that you don't have to worry about floor spaces.
But now I'm going to steal it away from you. With Galaxy Trucker, quite a lot of pieces going on.
There are a lot of pieces. Yeah, the way I play it is we have the big box with the expansions in, so the box is like maybe 2 or 3 foot wide, and that's where we put all the pieces in. So you're all rummaging out of the upturned lid of the big box, which means pieces don't go everywhere, and they're all easy for everyone
top
to
tip
reach.
for real life and this scenario. And this big box, we're gonna give that to the kid that we like the least to carry to the campsite.
Exactly, it doubles up.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
I mean, you could have split up maybe some of the expansions, but you definitely big box. There's this there's no situation.
Where else the piece is going to go, Rich?
Well, but you could have. Fair enough.
With Sounds Fishy, I might be a bit worried about longevity in terms of, is there enough questions in that box?
There's a whole load of questions, but I don't know how fast you'd burn through them. I'm not going to lie.
Start making your own.
There's a lot of questions that you could, but that you have no internet. So
everyone knows one weird, obscured fact, right?
Yes.
If that is the case, there's only 6 extra questions.
Yeah.
True.
And then you'd be like, is that the true one?
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't know.
I
Timmy
think
said
so.
that.
I saw it on the internet. It must be true.
I think just go and find out little facts about the forest. You'd be like, does that tree over there have a bird in it or something?
Guess what I used as toilet paper earlier.
Is it poisonous?
Oh no, that would be terrible.
Only one way to find out.
Do you want me to rank your suggestions, or do I just
we've
pick
never done
my
that
favourite?
before.
Normally just
Well,
pick a
not
winner.
rank, but do you want me to critique?
This is what you could have chosen. Yeah, go for it.
So with Villainous, I haven't played it, so I can't fully go in on it, but I would be concerned about just their attention span with it not being that energetic. The other two are more energetic games. But certainly there's enough depth and, different, ways you can play as different factions or whatever, so you can play it multiple times in that evening. And like you say, the theme would appeal to them, not so much to this scout leader, but, they're the ones that we need to keep awake. I'll be fine. Galaxy Trucker, I was worried about the pieces, but you've really turned that around for yourself.
Wow. A clincher.
Definitely the energy's good. The real-time aspect, you can't sort of not pay attention if you want to win the game. And there's some good replayability there. So, strong. And sounds fishy, strong. I definitely like the idea of a social game. I'm not sure. I wouldn't have necessarily picked that one, but it does play well for 6 and would be good around a campfire. Definitely the most practical game, the lightest to take. My pick though would be Galaxy Tracker.
Nice.
Well done. Good job.
And I loved your idea of giving it to someone else to carry. That box is huge.
Instantly, like, just here you go.
I will say this though, I don't know about the new version because they've redone it, but the old version had these tiny green capsule
battery
pieces.
tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to lose some of those.
Yeah, I would be surprised if you made it even with half of them in the morning. They're going missing.
You might want to paint them glow in the dark. It sort of fits the theme if you could get glow in the dark paint on your plastic bits. Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, just get little Timmy to mix up some toxic lead-based stuff. Yeah,
That's another badge.
Yeah, poison,
Exactly.
poison crafting badge.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really, really good. Where can people find you?
Find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Actualol. That is the word actual with OL at the end. That's the best place. I make videos and I do top 10s and reviews and the odd comedy musical song about board games.
The board game song.
Yeah.
Good.
Perfect.
Good.
So thank you very much. And we've been the Chance Encounters podcast. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you have been on YouTube, please consider liking and maybe leaving a comment of what you would have got the 6 14-year-old people to play. And if you can, we're on all podcast platforms.
Yeah, please download us wherever you find your podcasts. But please also like, comment, share, tell people about the podcast, and come back next week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks very much.
Goodbye.